everyone? Welcome back to the KeenGamer Podcast. I'm your host, Tristan. Today, I'm met with Andy. How are you doing, dude?
Oh, yeah, I'm all right. Yourself?
Doing well. Welcome to the show. It's your first time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah,
of course. So we have a little bit of a shorter show. We're recording this on a Monday rather than a Tuesday, so a little bit of a slow news week, but we'll be talking about the new state of play that's coming this week. Actually, when the podcast comes out, we'll get the new state of play. It's all about Ratchet and Clank, and then we'll be celebrating Resident Evil because the new Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Village, comes out next week. So hyped for it. Andy, I bet you're hyped as well.
It'll be great.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get started, though, just want to update people real quick. KeenGamer is expanding its coverage. We'll now be doing TV shows, movies, and comic books, actually, so people can check out all the news involving those mediums, along with reviews and features, opinion pieces, all that good stuff. And video podcasts are now official. We had one a few weeks ago, and then we stopped because we needed to clear some stuff up with management and whatnot. But now, hopefully, we should be getting these up as soon as we can up on YouTube. So let's get right into it, though. Literally this morning, breaking news, at least for us, not for the audience who's listening, as state of play is already happening probably when you're listening. But they're getting a new state of play right up on the PlayStation blog. They announced that they showed some new gameplay for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It looks so beautiful. And they released, actually, they revealed the name of the female Lombax that everyone's been freaking out about. Her name is Rivet, and I'm already obsessed with her.
Rivet.
And we will be, there'll be a whole state of play on Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be getting that. It'll be really exciting. They also showed that you can get 5 armor sets if you get the digital deluxe edition. So some new content and some new gameplay and all that stuff. But Andy, before we started the show, you said you haven't played a Ratchet and Clank since the first one.
Oh yeah, and even then I was too young. I think I just played the first level over and over again. I think it was just the first one. I'm pretty sure. And then I remember playing the Gladiator one as well a little bit after that.
Oh, okay.
At that point, I didn't know what was going on. I just ran around. And,
you're too young to understand.
Yeah.
What have you seen much on Rift Apart? Like, do you have any thoughts on it?
Oh yeah, I mean, it looks great. I mean, the graphics are definitely completely next gen, obviously, but it looks good.
Yeah, I am super hyped for it. I've talked about it a million times how I'm a huge Insomniac fan. I love their Spider-Man games, and I love this. I love Sunset Overdrive. I love everything they do. They just have really stylish, really fun games, and I'm so stoked for it. And I will absolutely be watching this state of play. I'm glad it's interesting that we're getting a dedicated state of play just for one game rather than them showing anything else. I thought that when I read on Twitter being like, hey, there's going to be a state of play. And then it's like, no, it's only going to be about Ratchet and Clank. I'm like, oh, they're dedicating it to that. But that is their next bigger release. I think it comes out in 2 months from now. So we'll be getting that real soon. But I'm so hyped for it. Do you have because I think it comes for PlayStation. I think it's only exclusively PlayStation 5. But do you have a PS5 or plan on getting one?
No, I don't have a PlayStation 5. No, I've just my PC and a Switch as well, which is sitting around somewhere.
Do you Are you gonna try and hunt for one, or you're
maybe a bit down in the future? Yeah. So far, just the PC for now, I think.
Oh, okay, you're primarily a PC guy.
Yeah.
I'm glad for you to join me because I'm also primarily a PC guy. Also.
Oh, that's great then. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're the master race. But I do have my PS5. Exactly. I love PlayStation. I love their exclusives and such. At least for Xbox, I can just play all that stuff on PC because they put it all on there. So I do like they're very PC friendly. But I don't know, dude. If you get a PS5 one of these days, are you gonna pick up Ratchet and Clank?
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch on the list which I need to play for PlayStation. I still need to play The Last of Us.
Ooh,
Horizon Zero Dawn is now on Steam, of course, but beforehand that was also on the list. I still need to play Bloodborne. I'm a big Dark Souls fan, so.
Dude, Bloodborne.
I still haven't gotten around to that because.
So you missed the whole PlayStation 4 gen too.
Yeah, no, I the last I had a PS2, and then that was the last PlayStation I had. Yeah.
Damn, dude, you have a lot to catch up.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Obviously, like you said, they've been a lot more friendly with Steam now. You've got the Beyond Two Souls, Heavy Rain, all of that on Steam now. And
Horizon Days Gone is like around the corner of coming to PC. You could skip that one. To be honest, I wasn't a big fan. You might like it, but yeah,
I'll give it a go. Yeah, there's a lot of catching up I need to do, but
yeah,
that's
Xbox cool though.
Hasn't been as friendly to Steam, I don't think, than PlayStation.
Yeah, they're slowly getting there. Yeah, but hopefully, like that would be so sick if like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart came to PC. Like that would
I'd buy it then.
Oh my god! Yeah. Like imagine playing that game at like 100 plus FPS. Oh my god!
The next gen, that would be great.
That would be awesome. But let's get right into Resident Evil, dude. That's I know that's why you're here. It's probably been antsy to talk about it. So yeah, Resident Evil Village comes out next week. It's so hyped for it. But just to kind of get started though, what is your general like, like where do you stand on Resident Evil? Like what's your overall like history and like feelings towards Resident Evil? Just kind of give people a good idea for where you stand with the franchise.
Oh, well, it's obviously very influential. I mean, it's hard to imagine where the survival horror genre would be without it at this point. Ever since 1996, I want to say.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 1. Yeah, it's just been. I can't imagine what it was like back then. Back now, well, now it's a little hard to imagine what it was like back then. But and then with the remaster as well that came out recently, I've played that through. That was definitely good. It definitely did a good job of bringing it a bit up, bringing it up to standard a little bit for today, but still keeping the main chunk of it in there in terms of the tank controls and the fixed perspective and all that.
Yeah,
all that good stuff. But the first one I played was Resident Evil 4 on PS2. I think I was around a mate's house, and obviously that's probably not much of a surprise. That is my favorite one.
It's most people's favorite.
Yeah, it is most people's favorite. I say that as if it's a even slightly controversial take.
Yeah, it's some hot take. Like, oh no, he likes Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, no, but and then I played after that 5 came out. I played that. I didn't find it as good, but the co-op was fun. I liked that. It seemed to I don't know, it tried to be a little more serious than Resident Evil 4, I think, and a little bit more grounded, whereas Resident Evil 4 embraced its campier side a little bit. I think that worked. But the co-op was great in Resident Evil 5, like I said. That was a good addition. I was right, it wouldn't work initially because, I mean, survival horror is all about being alone and isolated and being disempowered, and the co-op element take away from that a little bit, but I found it good in the long run. It was
it's an interesting game because I think Resident Evil 5 as a game is fine. Like it's like kind of like a whatever kind of forgettable game. It's serviceable, but as a co-op game, it's pretty damn good. Like it's really fun playing a Resident Evil game with a friend. Yeah. No, it's sort of like I look at it as sort of like the Dead Space 3, where it's not that great of a game, but when you play it with a friend, it's significantly better. I think co-op improves like almost every game.
Yeah,
usually.
No, for sure.
But so after Resident Evil 5, like where have you played any of the other games?
Yeah, I played Resident Evil 6 after that. Obviously, that was a bit of a step back from the typical the roots, as they say.
Yeah, our very own Luis, though, he loves that game. He loves it. He's talked about it multiple times, actually. Like even on the last podcast, he was talking about like I mentioned like, oh yeah, Resident Evil 6 sucked, and he was just like he came to defend it as always. He's like the only person, but most people not big fans of Resident Evil 6 at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I liked it. It was fun. I played it through co-op, and it's good, but it's a good game. But I don't think it's a very good Resident Evil game. I think is the sum of it. It was a bit too action orientated. It was a bit muddled, I think. So obviously the split perspectives of all the 4 stories of Sherry, Leon, and Chris Redfield. They all had their own play style. Leon's was more focused towards the action. Sorry, the horror aspects of the game, whereas Chris's was a lot more of a shooter, and then Sherry's was a mix of the two, really, if I remember right. But yeah,
they all, like from what I understand, it was like 3. It was like however many different campaigns, like 3 different campaigns, and each one sort of had like a slightly different feel and tone to it in a way. Yeah. I played like the demo of like I think that I don't remember if the demo had like multiple of the campaigns or if it just had one, but I remember playing as Leon and I didn't like the feel of the game. Like when I would move, it felt like he was too light and like when I would hit enemies, they would go sailing and stuff like that. It felt
Yeah,
very cartoony almost.
it was like that. Everything was light. You could skate around. You didn't feel, nothing was heavy. It's in shooting enemies didn't feel as impactful. You could just spray everywhere and kick everything and run around and all the kung fu and such. And it was whereas taking it back to something like Resident Evil 4, you have less ammo. Your shots have more. You have to be more accurate with your shots. So if you shoot in the leg, obviously you got the suplex or the roundhouse kick afterwards. So it rewards you for shooting well. Whereas Resident Evil 6 is obviously just a more general shoot 'em up with the skating around, jumping around, crouching, flipping. Yeah,
the whole gymnastics of it all. But then, so where did you go with 7 and the remakes though? Like, how did you feel about those?
I played I played number 7 quite recently. I played it a few years ago when it first came out, and I couldn't get into it. I got to the beginning, and it just got to the point where towards the very beginning where I just couldn't. I found it a little bit too hard to get into. I found it a little frustrating. Sometimes I don't get on too well with horror games because I feel like, the amnesia formula where it's just sit in a corner, look around the corner, wait for the guy to get out of the only way you can go, and you just can't. It's very passive.
Yeah.
But then I gave it another go a few months ago, actually, as soon as Resident Evil Village was announced, of course. And I enjoyed it much more. I managed to get past that bit, and then obviously it still has its negatives. I think towards the second half it gets considerably worse. I think as soon as you get on the boat.
Yeah. The boat stuff, it's like a little rough.
Yeah, but until then, it was good. I like the characters. I wish there was a shop. But it seems like they're bringing that back to Resident Evil Village. You get the little bird cages and such, but I don't know, you miss out a lot of the charm there. And there was only like 3 or 4 cages in the game.
Yeah,
a few buffs.
I also just recently replayed it actually, and I thought that opening hour is it's one of my favorite. I think it's one of the best openings to any video game. Like the first act is just incredible. Yeah. But it does become more action oriented, and then that's where I think it starts to fall apart because it just doesn't quite nail it, and because it starts off so horror heavy and then it becomes so action heavy, the transition doesn't feel appropriate. And then also I didn't like the enemies, like the mold or whatever.
Wings,
those were just very uninteresting and boring to fight. Like when you would talk about, I think 4 is like one of the best ones because there is a variety of different enemies, whether it's different enemies with different weapons, or you do come across some different like kind of monsters and stuff like that. It's really cool. And it looks like Village is going to harken back to that because you get werewolves, vampires, and
it's
there's some other weird monsters.
Completely occult over there,
yeah. Did you see the recent video actually for Resident Evil Village, the recent trailer?
I think so. I've been trying to keep up with all of the trailers and such. I probably have, yeah.
Yeah, but I remember there's like some other monsters or whatever. He's like in a cave or looked like some sort of mine or something like that. And there was like these other type of monsters. I'm like, how many different enemies are in this game? Because there's so much and very different for the franchise too. So I think that's super cool. And I think that was probably my only gripe with 7 because other than that, I think 7 is like one of the best ones. It might actually be my favorite just because it does lean so heavy into the horror, and I think the beginning of that game is so good. It kind of makes up for some of the lacking parts of it. But so I don't know. I kind of hope they can find a happy medium of action and horror because I feel like they never are able to. They can find one and they can't find the other aspect, and then they kind of lose it. So I think that's my only real worry for Village. But did you play the remakes of 2 and 3?
Yeah, I played 2. I'm yet to play 3.
It's all right.
The original
all right.
2.
But 2 is, dude, isn't it 2 fantastic?
2's great. 2's
oh
really
my god.
Good. Yeah. I didn't really like Mr. X as much. For the same reasons I said before. I just he just slowly lumbers towards you, and he seems to get in the way more than anything. And I saw him, I was like, oh, all right, okay. I better go run around in a circle in a bit or try and get around something to dodge him. But yeah, it was like you were saying with the mold enemies, they kind of just appeared. They didn't scare you much, and then you just kind of you deal with them and you move on. And there's only like 3 different types, and they all look the same. You've got the big one, the little skinny one that crawls across the floor, and then the generic one that just kind of like lumbers towards you.
Yeah.
But yeah, two is much better. I liked the enemies. It just felt good to play, and it was obviously a great upgrade from the original.
Yeah, I would say
just
actually,
in terms of modernizing it.
Yeah, I would say the 2 remake might be one of the best ones because I think it's, to me, at least out of what I've played, I think it's probably the best one in terms of that balance of action and horror, because that game is super scary. But it's also like really action packed, and you get like the cheesy one-liners and stuff like that, you know, but then you also get like some really like legit good scares out of it. I don't think I got into Resident Evil until 4, and even then I was really young, and so I didn't play it all the way through. I played through like some of the beginning,
the village.
Yeah, but found it really scary as a kid, and also just like having to like stop and then aim and shoot, you know, like I hated that. I could never get used to it. I somehow managed it with 5, I think mostly because I was playing a co-op, and like I said, it's a fine game, not necessarily a good game, but it's fun playing with a friend, you know. And it had cool online too. I liked the multiplayer in that game too, which looks like they're kind of doing some similar related stuff with Village, at least not necessarily multiplayer, but other game modes and whatnot. I like I said, I only played the 6th demo, which I was like, wow, this is really bad. And that game came out, and most people were like, this is really, really bad. I don't really get the appeal of it. You know, if people like it, that's cool. But like, I'm so glad they went back to horror, and also to kind of change things up with going first person with 7. That was such a bold move, you know?
Oh yeah, and it's a series that really, it's just constantly reinventing itself with so you've got the tank controls and the fixed perspective in 1 to 3, and then 4 broke the mold with the behind the shoulders perspective, and then obviously that kind of wore out eventually with the Resident Evil 6, and now again with 7 we've got the complete reinvention again with the first person perspective. So it's just and that's the first of the trilogy, Resident Evil Village being the second of the trilogy. So it's good they've gotten away from it, I think, because it get a nice self-contained story with a new protagonist. It's gotten away from what's gotten a bit convoluted, I think. With Resident Evil 6 and 5 and all the C virus, the T virus, the G virus.
They're going through all the letters. They'll go through the whole alphabet, and once they run out of letters, then that's when Resident Evil ends. They're like, all right, we did all the whole alphabet. We're good. We have literally nothing else to give you.
So it's sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, like, I think from there it's like I actually played 7 when it came out, but was so scared I legitimately only got through, like, I think I beat the first boss, and then when I beat Jack for the first time you fight Jack, because you fight him I think 3 times. So I beat him the first time, and then I was done. I'm like, you know what? I'm never gonna play this game again. And then now with Village coming out, I was like, oh, I gotta play through 7. I have seen all of 7 on YouTube, but I never played all of it. So I was like, you know what? This is how I'm gonna play it. I was just overly aggressive. I'm just running through this game. If something pops up and scares me, I'm just gonna go run around it and just keep running. Or keep shooting when I would have I would get some guns and whatnot. Like the shotgun, I just got the double barrel shotgun like as early as I could and just blasted through the game. So that way, that game not very scary when you are just running through it and just shooting everything in the face. But it's still fantastic though, and I still was glad I was able to finally play through the goddamn game, just because I was so unbelievably scared that first time, and still a little bit scared. I have a buddy of mine who he's walked through like 3 or 4 doors in the game, and that's it. That's literally all he's done. And that was like a couple of weeks ago. He goes, he's like, does it get scarier? I'm like, it does. It gets less scary eventually, but you're gonna have to play through a good 2-3 hours before that happens. So I don't think he's gonna beat it, to be honest. He's way more scared than I am, and he wanted to play it because of Village. But I'm like, dude, if you can't beat this game, you're not gonna be able to beat Village either, because you're gonna be too scared. of
sure.
the giant vampire ladies and the werewolves and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But
all
and
the
then
members of your cult that have jumped out of the
oh
jumped
yeah,
out of the series, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I really liked the 2 remake. I think what killed me with the 2 remake was, because you played Leon's campaign, you can play Claire's campaign. Playing the 2 campaigns was a little much for me. Like I played through Leon's first, and then I was kind of done. Like I was just like, I'm like, oh, I had my fix this game. I'm full. I don't need any more. But I was like, well, I have to obviously play her campaign too. So that was a little bit of a slog, just because like it is still fantastic. It was just more me being like, I already got my fix this game. I don't need to play anymore. And that's no fault of the game. That's just me. But the three I think you should play. It's really short and it's good. It's just like it just doesn't have any of the highs, and that's not any fault of the remake itself. It's just more of a fault of the original. Like the original is known for being a little bit lesser. I know they did remove content, which is weird because 3 is known for being kind of a short game, and then they made it even shorter for some reason. I think that's an absurd idea. But supposedly we're getting a 4 remake too. How do you feel about like a 4 remake? Because I know some people are like, "Ooh, we don't need it. It's already perfect." Yeah. So I don't know. What do you feel?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends how they go about it. There's a few bits that could be a bit better. Mostly, I'm not sure if it's the fault of the port, the Steam port. That is, it's a game that's been ported many times. But the quick time events and the button mashing in some parts are just. I don't know if it's the controllers or. But I've heard it. I've looked it up, and it's a big problem apparently with some people where they just can't get through some of the parts because you have to mash it at such a high rate that it just doesn't work. But other than that, I think they should mostly keep everything intact. Because if you tweak around with it too much, then obviously it's going to be a different game. But they should just don't fix what isn't broken. I think obviously re-energize it with a bit more. Make it. Modernize it with graphical standards and all that, and maybe make it a bit more intuitive. But I think it's a hard question, really. I'm not too sure.
I think it'll look gorgeous with the RE engine. I think that'll be super cool. Just to see what it looks like. I also just want them to remove the standing still shooting part. Like I liked the way they handled it with 2 and 3 of just being kind of a standard 3rd-person shooter type of game. I can't stand it.
I literally like that. It makes it so much more tense, combined with the narrow perspective you've got and how admittedly clunky you are moving about. It makes it super tense, especially in that first village fight where you get waves and waves of enemies with a chainsaw guy, and it's a timed. And I really like it. You can't do both at the same time, so you've got to commit yourself and really stand your ground.
I get the appeal. I'm just not good enough at video games to handle that, and I think the stress of it would just get to me too much, and that's why I never beat that game. But I hope they do it, or maybe they just have an option. Maybe it's like, hey, you want to play it like the standard version, or do you want to play it with the new type of gameplay? It's like if you want to stand still and shoot, you can, or if you just want to move around and shoot, you also have that option. So. I think that would be really smart. I don't think they would do that just because they didn't have any options or anything like that with some of the remasters and remakes they've already have done. They kind of are like, hey, this is how the game's going to be played. I think especially for horror, it's very important that you have a very narrow, like this is the way it's meant to be played, because then you get the full experience of it. Like you said, like the tensity of it. So if they were to ditch it, I think it would be a smart move. But I also, I think I don't think they would give people an option to do the old way. Or if they had if the old way was the standard version, I don't think they would have an alternative to it by having it more of a standard 3rd-person shooter type of style. But I don't know. Either way, I'm totally down for a Resident Evil 4 remake. Just to give it a facelift. Just at the very least, just to look at everything and be like, man, this is so gorgeous. Because the RE engine is like one of the most impressive game engines I think ever. It's just like seeing 7 for the first time was like, oh my god.
It looks so good. Yeah.
And
like you were saying before, maybe they go for like a middle ground where maybe you can move, but you're a lot slower while you're aiming, and your accuracy is as a penalty or something like that. Maybe they can go for a middle ground, but I suppose it's just one of those things you have to wait and see what they do.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, it's like there's an intensity to that. Like when it's just like you're in like a narrow, tight area, like the tight village, with all the buildings and stuff like that. It's a little hard to navigate. And then you have all these enemies and you have to stand and shoot, like there is something it really brings to the gameplay of that, and the experience. So I think it would be important. I'm not too sure. I think like a middle ground would be great, but that's why they're game developers and we're not, and they're much smarter than us. So they'll figure something out and we'll play it and be like, man, this is awesome. No matter what they choose, no matter what they do. But what would you say though? Like, since we kind of went over it, and there's even like some spinoffs we didn't even get to, but like, for you, I know you said 4 is your favorite, but what are other you think are the highs or lows of the franchise?
Well, obviously Resident Evil 1. Obviously I wasn't around when it was I was 2.
Yeah.
But obviously that is now Capcom's biggest franchise, and probably one of the biggest game franchises. So it's obviously grown into its own kind of industry in its own right, with like I said before, where would survival horror be without games like Resident Evil or Silent Hill that came out a few years later?
Yeah, it's so influential.
Like, would we have like games like Amnesia? I mean, that's Frictional's Amnesia. That's very influential, of course, but would we have that without survival horror? Without Resident Evil? It's difficult to say. I think I'm not too sure.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I think I haven't played a lot of the spin-offs. I did play one. There was like a House of the Dead styled one that was like on the Wii that I played. That was all right. Like, I think most of them are not that bad from what I've played. So I don't think the lows go that low outside of 6, 6 is rough. Sorry, Luis, if you're listening to this. Yeah. We're just going to hate on that game. I never played 1 though. Like I never played, because I know they remastered it. It's not like a remake like they did with 2 and 3, but there is a remaster of it. But I never even played that. Did you play the remaster, or did you just?
Yeah, I played the remaster of number 1. Yeah, it's good. It looks great, but they've kept basically everything the same. It's not a kind of remaster of number 2 where they change everything.
Yeah,
as in you've still got the the hand painted backgrounds with your character with the tank controls. Although you can change that, of course, to more traditional controls, but yeah, it's the same thing. You've still got the ink ribbons, the limited saves. You've got the loading screens that open. It's exactly the same. It just looks a lot better.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a nut press, just a little bit of facelift. Yeah, I thought that was really smart. I never played it. So I only played I guess the modern ones. But yeah, overall though, I haven't really had any low experiences. All of them have been decent to pretty great. Outside of 6, but with Village coming out around the corner, what's your hype level at, and how you're feeling about it, but also what do you plan on playing it on? I assume PC actually.
Yeah, I'll be playing on the PC. But yeah, I'm pretty hyped. When it was first announced, I was okay, cool, I'll grab that. But then the more material that comes out, I've watched the demos. Obviously, I haven't played the demos yet, but the trailers, the setting. It reminds me of Resident Evil 4, funnily enough. The castles and the silliness, and the big trader dudes, the castle, which is it. And like you said, the enemy design is also, the enemy variety that seems to be coming from it is also a lot better, because like you say, you've got the lichens and you've got the I don't know if you did you play the demo or watch the demo?
Which one? Because there's at this point
the castle one.
The castle I did not watch. I watched I guess I technically watched the first castle one, the Maiden, which was the PS5 demo that came out a few months ago. But the new Resident Evil Village castle demo I did not watch at all.
You're just gonna wait until it comes out, or?
Yeah. I just I don't know. I just didn't have time to check it out.
That's fine.
But what'd you see with that though?
It's good. Yeah. Well, there's you. So obviously you've got the you see Lady Demestre. I don't know how to
I have
pronounce
no
her
idea
name.
how to pronounce it. They pronounced it in the last showcase, but like even then I was like, I don't remember
And
how she pronounced it.
Ethan says it as well in the castle demo that I yeah, I'm just gonna call her the lady for now.
Yeah,
But yeah,
we know
you
who
don't,
you're talking about.
yeah. And you see her, and you don't fight her in this specific demo, and you fight her daughters, the ladies that turn into flies or moths or something or other, and you also meet the Duke as well, who's
I
the
assumed
trader man.
that they turned into bats because they're vampires. It looked like I don't know. Well,
Maybe
no, I guess they would have been really small, so I guess they would be. It looked like maybe insects. I don't know. I don't
I
know what
think
it's supposed to be.
they're flies or moths or some kind of maybe locusts or something. I'm not too sure, but they looked fun to play against, and the Duke as well, the trader. Uh, uh, the way he interacts with the player is really fun as well. You've got the return to the cache inventory system,
Yeah.
which is obviously great. That was a staple of the fourth game. And then you can upgrade your weapons. You can. There seems to be a lot more enemy variety. There seems to be a lot more weapon variety.
Is the Duke the name of the store guy? Is that what you're referring
The
to?
trader guy, yeah, the big guy who's
Okay,
crazy. Sorry,
okay.
I should have made that clear.
I didn't know
yeah.
that's what he was referred to as. I just was like,
okay.
oh, they have a vendor guy or a store. Or
Oh,
whatever.
it's just the vendor guy, yeah. And he makes an Easter egg even to he makes a reference to the trader from Resident Evil 4 and talks about how a guy used to know.
Oh,
used to
really?
sell stuff and
That's
stuff like that.
awesome.
Yeah. So that's good because it seems they're obviously aware that Resident Evil 4 was loved, and they're trying to nudge it maybe in a bit more in that direction, which is good.
Yeah, I saw
But,
I did see the Village trailer demo. Did you see that one?
Maybe remind me what happens in it. I can't remember.
You go through and you have to like you find some woman and her father who's injured, and you take them into some safe house with some other survivors, and obviously things go horribly wrong there. But it looked really cool. You got to see like what gameplay against the werewolves that's what it was mostly about, was the werewolves.
Oh,
You didn't
yeah.
get I don't think there were any other enemies, at least from the video I saw. Maybe there's someone where they go a different path or they do something different, and or maybe get through it faster and they're able to see something else,
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure, but yeah, it was kind of basic stuff there. It seemed like there wasn't nearly as much compared to the castle, at least from what I saw. You're talking about all these different enemies, and you're talking about the vampires and the Duke and all that stuff. Like this was more just like, it felt more story oriented. I don't know how much story there was in the castle. Was there like much cinematics or dialogue or anything like that?
Well, no, it's just Ethan awakes in a kind of very regal-looking room, and obviously he's looking for his daughter, and he comes across the Duke, who sells him some things, and then there's an encounter with one of the daughters, and then you escape from her. You head down a cellar. You see Lady Jamila. And you don't encounter her properly.
The tall one.
Yeah, the tall one. Yeah, you see her, and then she goes. You don't actually engage with her at all. And then you head down. There's these new kind of enemies, which I think are in the first trailer. It's like a prison kind of dungeon area, and they're equipped with like swords. They're like hooded, ugly things. They kind of look like the Dementors out of Harry Potter.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Their faces, I like that with the jagged mouths and all that. And there's a few of those enemies, and they took a lot to go down. I don't know what difficulty it was on. I was watching the IGN, I think, playthrough of it, and he had a shotgun and a pistol at that point, and he was almost out of ammo just trying to deal with 2 or 3 of them. And then after that, he runs up, he encounters another sister who catches him in a sense, and the demo ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the daughters of her. Yeah. And then I guess there's also a brother too. If you remember, I don't know if they were shown in the demo, but in the trailers, there's in the last trailer, she meant the tall one mentions a brother, and you do see him. If you remember, there's a guy with he's like a bearded man with a big hat and stuff like that.
The big hammer.
Yeah. That's so he's the brother also.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he's a vampire too. It's a little unclear from what we haven't only seen like a handful of bits of him, but I'm like, man, there's like how many bosses or like enemies, like main villains, not like obviously like a generic werewolf here and there or some zombie or whatever, but I mean like in terms of the actual antagonists who are essential to the story. I wonder how many there are because you're gonna have to kill all those daughters, the tall lady, the brother, and I think there might have been because that's just all the castle stuff too. Because I assume there must be some boss or something in the village, and
Yeah, well, there's the Mother Miranda.
that's
Not
right.
much has been
That's another
said
one.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much has been said about her, but I think she's the matriarch of the entire place. Even the lady answers to her. I think in the trailer or gameplay where Ethan's listening at a balcony, and the lady's talking to Mother Miranda on the phone. So she seems to answer to Mother Miranda. So she's the big central. I'd say she's the big central, antagonist matriarch of the entire.
Yeah, from what
group.
we've seen at least,
Yeah.
Who knows? They might
guess.
throw something else at you. It's just like, but yeah, that's a ton of people to get through.
It's a lot.
Like,
yeah.
It's gonna. I think it's. It has to be like a pretty long game. I would assume, at least for a Resident Evil game, because 4 was a decent size. Because you go through all these different areas. Go through. Well, basically, you go through a village, then you go through a castle, just like village. But yeah, This game's gonna be nuts because I just can't imagine like how much there is to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I don't know. It's going to be bigger than Resident Evil 7, I think. And compared to the Baker family, there's technically only really 3 bosses, and you just fight. You just fight one of them a few times.
Yeah, you just repeat bosses with the first one, and then you fight the mother, and then you fight the little girl at the end, and that's about it.
And even that boss fight is just just click a few times and you're done. It wasn't really.
Yeah.
The last one, that is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where 7 is pretty short. Like I got through that game in about 4 hours, 5 hours or so.
Yeah.
I think a little bit less than 5 hours. So it's definitely gonna be a significant game. Like Resident Evil 2 remake. We mentioned it's like you're playing through 2 different campaigns that are roughly like 6 to 8 hours ish. So it's like you get a good chunk of time from that game. So. I assume it has to be within like I don't know if they've ever even said how long it's expected to be. Actually, I'm gonna look that up real quick. But yeah, like with 2, it was just a couple, like a good few hours, like a good amount though. So actually, I did find an answer to this. So it seems like it's gonna be 20 to 30 hours roughly.
Oh wow.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a lot more than Resident Evil 7. I just got my Steam up now, and I've got 7.6 hours in Resident Evil 7. So it's at least triple the length of Resident Evil 7. In my case, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good length. Like at least I don't know that necessarily how that stacks up against like some of the older games, but I think that's great because I do think 7 was a little too short. Like it was just like I think it was the right story that they wanted to tell, and they wanted to tell a more concise story. But it was like also like, oh, I'm done with the game. Okay, that was it. There's DLC and stuff like that you could check out, and so at least there's extra content. But it's like paid DLC that you have to pay extra after playing a 5 to 6 hour game or whatever. Unless you rushed through it like me and you got it through it in like 4 hours.
Yeah, you're just going past everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you play the DLC?
I didn't play any of the DLC. I've seen it. There was 1 or 2 that I would probably like. I might play one day, but there was there was one of the Chris Redfield that I thought looked kind of just like just a regular shooter and just didn't look that appealing. And there's the one where you play as like one of the other family one of the Baker family members.
It's the brother of Jack. He's called Joe.
He's just going around punching stuff like that.
Yeah, his whole shtick is he just punches things. He gets like a big power fist kind of thing.
It's too goofy for me. Like Resident Evil,
silly.
My one gripe with the franchise is sometimes I think it's too silly. Like I can't handle it going too far out there. Like I love 4, but there's some lines in 4 that are just too much for me. They're just
really
too
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so and even with the 2 remake, there's some of the interactions between Leon and Claire I thought was really painful to get through. So I liked how the base game of 7 was a little bit more serious, and even the goofier stuff I think worked better. I worked in its favor. because it didn't go too far, and it knew where to draw the line. So I hope this game also manages that. It also looks like, so far from what we've seen, it seems like it is kind of keeping to a more serious tone, but with maybe a few like eccentric characters that might get you a good laugh or two. I'm sure the Duke might say something that is going to get you to laugh, and maybe one of the villains.
He'll be the moments of levity in between the traders or the save points. The save music is always these little nuggets of just peace and a little bit of brevity in between.
Yeah, I just don't want like some of the older games. It's like every character brings levity, and it's like I don't want that. It's like it's too much. Like some of the lines that Leon says, it's kind of like makes me kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, all right, I get it.
Like,
but
oh no.
Yeah, some of it is also dated writing, because game writing is, I think, improved greatly. It's still not great overall, but it's definitely improved over the years.
On the up, yeah.
Is there anything you're hoping for Village, though? Since we've kind of talked about like what to expect and whatnot, but like, and where our hype levels are at.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that because the gunplay in Resident Evil 7 is really fun. It feels impactful. It looks great, like you were saying, the engine. But I just hope we have the enemy variation to match it. Otherwise, it's not going to be the same, because the moldlings are just, or the molded, sorry, not the moldlings, they just weren't interesting to deal with. The guns felt good to use, but if the enemies don't match that, then it's just, they're not very fun to get through. It's not fun to use your weapons. I just use the shotgun the entire game. If I saw one in the head, and then you can move on and never bothers you again. So I hope, so far what we've seen is the Lycans, obviously the sheer amount of bosses we're going to have to get through.
Yeah.
The creatures that you encounter in the dark dungeon area. So that's at least 2 different types of enemies so far, and a lot of bosses. So yeah. I'm just hoping it's a hard balance between the survival horror, like running away from stuff, from invincible enemies, and then actually dealing with the enemies that you can deal with in a way that's satisfying, but at the same time difficult. It's a hard balance, and that's what the series has always tried to balance, I think, with the if it's more horror orientated or whether it's more shooter action survival kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I know you weren't the biggest fan of of kind of sneaking around people and having these almost unstoppable enemies like with Mr. X or the Baker family, at least before you go into the boss battles, but like when you're roaming around the house and stuff like that and Jack's following you or whatever. But since you're gonna be chased around by sexy vampires, is your how do you feel about that?
It's probably gonna be, it's definitely more interested in being chased around by the Baker family and their horrible little plantation.
Yeah.
But it's different in a certain sense, because and you can fight them. If it's like Mr. X, where if you shoot him enough, or then he will go down for a little bit and give you a chance to escape. So I guess that they're probably doing a similar kind of thing.
Well, the Baker family was like that too. Actually, you could actually stop them briefly. But yeah, but even then, it's not the best strategy, because you'd just be wasting ammo, and they'd be stopped for what, a minute, and then they're back on you. But yeah, I think it looks like it's gonna work the exact same from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's similar. It depends on the map as well, of course, because there's a few instances where where you have to go. There was a few instances when I played the game where I knew where I had to go, and Marguerite or Jack was just standing there, and instead of just waiting for them to get out of the way, I was just like, I'll just bite the bullet and just run past them.
Yeah.
Because by the time they notice you and actually aggro and set their sights on you and begin attacking you, you're gone pretty much. And you can always abuse the fact just in Marguerite's little boathouse area thing. I remember that was the place where you have to go is right next to a safe zone, so you can just run past her, run to the safe zone. That'll de-aggro her, and then you just continue on your merry way. So
yeah, those safe zones, you can really cheese the hell out of them. That's how you survive too. Like when people are like, "Oh man, Mr. X is rough," and it's like no, just go to a safe room. You're good.
Yeah, like when you're planning a route in Resident Evil 2 around the police station, you're never thinking what's the quickest way. You're thinking, oh, how can I make as many stops and as many safe rooms as possible in order to just completely block him off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for Village though, like a lot of it, I think gameplay wise is I'm really vibing with. I just hope
Mhm.
the story is able to kind of be more consistent and I think be a little bit more impactful. I really don't like Ethan. I think
Yeah,
he's such a lame protagonist who just he's just overly naive and like he is
mhm.
like no matter all that he went through in Village, he still would say stuff. You're just like, dude, can you not understand what's
Yeah.
going on? You know, and like stuff like that. I think he's just kind of a weak character, and I just don't think he's very interesting. And especially since from what we know, it seems like there is some mysterious thing with Chris Redfield being involved and whatnot. Like, you know, like
Mhm.
him being a part of Umbrella now, which has a new, slightly different logo with the
Yeah.
blue on there instead of the red and
I'm sure
whatnot.
they're completely different and not at all evil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, like there's stuff like that, but the premise from what we know is the same, where it's just like, hey, this person in your life is been held here. You need to go there and save them. And it's like, you know, first it was your wife, and now it's your daughter who's been kidnapped. And it's like, man, if you're a
Mhm.
woman, stay away from Ethan. You're gonna
Yeah,
get
yeah,
kidnapped
no.
by a bunch of psychopaths, and he's gonna have to save you, and you might not live through it. You know, and it's just like, man, this dude's luck is brutal. But
Mm.
I hope it's a little bit more interesting than just saving a daughter who they're just introducing in this game, so you don't really know her, and you probably won't see her through a good chunk of the
Mhm.
game. You
Yeah.
know, so I just hope they're able to do that and make and maybe give him some growth to make him a little bit more compelling and more interesting.
Mhm.
So there's so many great protagonists, you know, like even though I have my issues with Leon's dumb lines and stuff like that, but it's
Yeah.
like, but you can't go wrong with him either, though. It's like he's such an
Mhm.
iconic character. Same with Chris
Yeah.
and you know, like a Claire and Jill, and there's
Mhm.
some really iconic characters. And it's like, oh, here's this new guy. He's just a dude, and he's I don't know, not very interesting or anything like that. Like I just didn't like
Mhm.
some of his reactions to things. Just felt very unnatural
Yeah.
in bio in 7, and so I hope they're able to like maybe just do a better job of writing that character. Like just
Mhm.
even giving him better dialogue. From what I've seen,
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like that though. Because I mentioned in the village demo, you find a woman and her father who's injured and stuff like that, and then you
Mhm.
find these new people that you take them to keep everyone safe and whatnot. And some of the stuff you just say is just like I'm like you just saw these like you know these monsters and werewolves and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Then why would your reaction be X or Y? You know, it's like he just would say stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you say like that's not a normal human being thing to say when
Mhm.
you're in this situation? Obviously, it's not a normal thing to be in this situation, regardless.
Mhm.
But if you put yourself in his shoes, your response would be probably be different than the things he's
Yeah.
saying. You know, and I felt that way all throughout 7, and I from what I've seen, I felt that way too. So I think it's for me, it's less gameplay and more of because I think everything I've seen, I'm vibing with. Like, cool, they're bringing back the
Mhm.
store. They have the cool new the cool inventory system from 4. You know, they're really ratcheting up the horror aspects of it and stuff like that. It's just
Mhm.
I'm just like, man, I don't want to play Ethan again, especially now it's a longer game too. Like I could stand playing as Ethan for about 4 hours. Oh, actually, a little bit less than 4 hours because you do switch to Mia at one point.
Yeah.
You know, like
Towards the end.
the
Yeah.
boat. But like, man, 20 to 30 hours with this dude. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not
It's
looking
gonna
for. That's
be.
the one thing I'm kind of dreading is having to be in this protagonist I don't like shoes.
Yeah. They're gonna have to do a lot more to make us like him and relate to him a bit more. I think Mia was the problem as well in Resident Evil 7. No, I just didn't really care what happened to her by the end of it.
Yeah. I'm like
But yeah,
I'm like
he's
also she's
very
like possessed or whatever, and you're like she's a lost cause, dude. Just go home. Just
yeah,
leave her there.
like what can we? Yeah, he's very passive. He doesn't act much.
Mhm.
He's just going along and trotting along and going where he needs to go, and then I don't know. I think it'll be good adding some more characters that aren't trying to kill you, like the villagers there. Maybe that help him be a bit more likable with his actions for what he does for them.
Well,
But
I won't spoil it, but uh maybe there's not a whole, maybe not those villagers, but maybe some other people.
All right, okay, I get your meaning. Yeah, all right. Maybe he's
But hopefully there's other friendly people that he can interact with, and maybe you can gain something out of him with those interactions instead.
yeah. So it's not just, as you say, just chasing a loved one all the time. And
well, it also seems like he actually interacts with the villains more. Like, really, he doesn't really interact a whole lot with the Baker family. You know, like there's the dinner scene, and then you just kind of fight Jack. And then you don't really actually interact with him much on like actual dialogue or anything like that. You're just running away from him, or you fight him in the boss battles. And then Marguerite, you really don't interact with whatsoever. You know, she jumps out at you, tells you to stay out, and then you know, like an hour later, you're fighting her as a boss. You know, you fight her twice. You know, like one is like I guess a mini boss or whatever, and then you fight the big boss battle for her. And then Lucas is the only one you really interact with, you know, of the bad guys. Even then, you don't fight him as a boss.
And it's because it's interesting. I don't know if you haven't played the DLC. I don't know if you mind me telling you what happens.
I've seen all the DLC, so I know all that stuff. But so, go ahead.
Lucas is a lot more interesting, I think, generally, just because of that, because you interact with him a bit more. And
because he's in the Chris Redfield DLC, right?
Yeah, and he's not infected; he's playing along.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the other thing we've got to remember is that Jack and Marguerite are not themselves, and you see in the flashbacks that they were pretty cool back in the day. They were nice people. So you're talking to their infected selves, which are, you know, miles away from what they were. But hopefully, and well, we don't know much about these new villains, of course, but
yeah, like their motivations
is there a virus?
It doesn't seem
it's
like
weird.
It. I have no idea. Like I don't like. That's the thing I'm really excited about. Like, because when you kind of like, I think that's the one thing that Village did a great job was it felt so isolated from the franchise, but when it connects and you see how it connects to the overall universe, you know, like now it connects to Umbrella and all this stuff, it's fascinating. And I think they stick the landing with that, even though I do think some of the gameplay stuff and some of the choices they make story-wise and later in the game are not the best, but when you do see like, oh, it's, you know, it's this little girl and all this stuff, like it is really interesting story-wise. But Village, I have zero theories on that. Like I can't imagine how they connect vampires and werewolves to Umbrella. Like what are they up to? Like, because it's always connects to them, you know, I assume.
If it didn't have Chris Redfield in it, it didn't say Resident Evil Village at the end of it, you wouldn't be able to guess it was a Resident Evil game. It's so far detached from what the previous games have been, which is great. I think it's I think it's
a good way to kind of expand the franchise and expand the world, you know, and like really build something interesting with it. Yeah. I'm very curious to see how they do that, and like I think that's story-wise, Ethan, whatever, but like in terms of world building of the universe, like I'm super hyped for that. Like I think it's gonna be super interesting seeing how it all connects and whatnot, because I assume it's probably gonna be like late game, and then you see either something or something happens or whatever, and you go, oh, that's how it connects, you know. And especially when you get to learn about like what Chris is doing and whatnot, I think it's gonna be super interesting.
He seems to be turning into something of an anti-hero at this point with the trailers and all that we know about him. He's not exactly, he's in between you and obviously there's Ethan on one side, he's in the middle, and the other side you've got the family of you know, the lady and her daughters and the Duke and all that in that world. So there's definitely going to be a lot of secrets coming about through him and his associations with Umbrella, and we'll just have to wait and see. I think.
Yeah, I also think there's someone I follow. I think he just got hired at like I think Twinfinite. I think is he where he works at now? But he just like, I saw like an opinion piece he wrote up being like, hey, because the internet is so infatuated with the vampire ladies, being like, oh wow, they're so hot and all this stuff. You see all this like all these hilarious memes and stuff like that, you know, and all these people are horny for the vampires, but they have to do something to make them scary though. Like they really have to, like Capcom like needs to really like make them yes, fear them instead of us joking like, haha, I'm just gonna go chase the vampire lady because she's hot. But then like when you play the actual game, they can't make you feel that way, or else it kind of ruins the whole experience,
Yeah, that's sort of the problem. Like during the demos when the lady comes out and she starts walking towards you, it's just kind of, I wasn't scared, just like faintly, just like you say, you're just not scared. The daughters are a bit different. They're a little bit freaky and they turn into flies and stuff. So they've got that going for them. But the big lady, she's got the big Wolverine claw, and that's
yeah, which is super cool of a weapon.
Yeah,
I'm all about that. I'm all about a Wolverine vampire lady.
Yeah,
super
that's
hot.
9 foot tall. Yeah,
yeah. I am curious to see how they do that. I have seen a few clips here and there, and it's not like super scary, but I think the threat, it will at least make it tense.
Yeah,
I think that I'll be playing on actually the PS5, so I'm curious to see like how our experiences will differ, and I'll actually be doing the review for the game. Actually, I called it, and so so probably about 2 weeks, I would say, probably less than 2 weeks. I'll have the review up, and since the game comes out,
that'll be good.
In a week, May 7th, I think it is, right?
So,
7th, yeah.
So that's next Friday.
Oh God, I can't wait. I'm super hyped for this game. It looks fantastic. I have my worries, but I think overall though, I think they'll stick the landing, even though they'll probably miss a few steps here and there. But I'm overall though, it looks fantastic, and Capcom's been on a roll with Resident Evil, and just on a roll in general. Like all their franchises, they've been doing a really great job with. But do you have any final thoughts on Resident Evil?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that Resident Evil 7 was, the foundation, and Resident Evil Village will be the point where they really nail what they're trying to do with 7. Well, what they know what they're doing now. They've got the reception for 7. They know how to build upon that, so I think they can be a little more experimental, and I think we can see that in the tone of the story, and then hopefully with the third in the trilogy with Ethan Winters, hopefully it will be even better. But you know what they say about the third.
Film. For me, game. It's like the way I kind of I'm thinking about it. It's like it's almost like when a musician puts on an album that's really different and it doesn't quite hit, and then they kind of go back to the roots, but then they're like, all right, how can I find the medium between these two albums that is going to please audiences? And then they come out with a third album, and it's like, oh, cool. There's the experimentation from the first album, from 2 albums ago, but it's also the roots and everything from the early work and the last album. And it's kind of a blend of everything. And it seems like that's what they're going for. It's like it's 7 meets 4, and those I think are the 2 best ones next to Resident Evil 2 remake. So, dude, it's gonna be spectacular.
So hopefully that'll add out to something that's greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah. Hopefully. I hope so. It'd be great.
Fingers crossed. You never know with games. We've been disappointed by game releases before, but it looks really promising.
Yeah, no, it looks good.
But But thanks, Andy, for joining me on the podcast this week.
Yeah, no worries.
A lot of fun talking Resident Evil. I hope our audience goes to check it out too, because man, it's gonna be a wild ride for sure. But people can check out the KeenGamer Podcast every Thursday. We try and post as soon as we can on Thursdays. The video podcasts are coming. I'm not too sure what the schedule will necessarily look like once we tighten that up, but I promise we will be getting those out. So you can always check YouTube at KeenGamer, and just literally just YouTube, look up KeenGamer and find that. And so we'll see you guys next time.